Alright guys, TacticalRab here again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, with Kenny sitting down with Scump going into this year's Call of Duty World Championship. He reveals lots of interesting detail as to exactly what has been going on behind the scenes at OpTic have over the last several weeks, describing Pred in an interesting one-word situation, but also saying that yet again with this OpTic culture, they, after their Major 3 victory, started to take their practice somewhat less seriously, and that's resulted in the situation they currently find themselves in. Is Kenny in a position to turn this team around going into the World Championship? What exactly has been the problem over those last few weeks? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Some pictures, of course, from Scump's wedding that happened last week or whatever it was in Italy. Just, yeah, some spectacular stuff. I know there were some clips of Nature about this, and I'll probably share a couple of them towards the end of the video. Few other things to mention, right? Because as Scrap says, 5 days until he's heading out there for the World Championship, right? So, of course, they're grinding during the day, the teams, obviously, and then at night, might turn the stream on, getting out there to Dallas, ready for the event in a few days' time. Quickly wanted to mention this as well, because we announced this yesterday, the Breaking Point Awards in collaboration with the Flank. So the first ever like creator award show that we're going to do. So there's loads of people that vote in this. I'll probably make my votes public at some point in the near future. And, you know, everyone else is involved. The commentators, people in the scene, you guys know how it is. Also, the community can get involved. If you guys want to vote in this, then you're absolutely allowed to do so. So I'll leave the link down in the description box below. But yes, we've got the regular season awards, like a season MVP, AR Player of the Year, and we're going to do a show in a couple of weeks' time after the World Championship to, yeah, winners will be announced post-championship weekends, August the 2nd. So that's the plan anyway, that we're going to do the awards show early part of August and basically announce who are the winners of these prizes on the year, because, you know, the CDL doesn't always do this stuff as maybe they could. So the fan voting is open as of today for another week, just before the World Championship, right? So you guys can vote for Best Play of the Year. Map of the Year doesn't mean like Rio or Vista or whatever. It means like actual map. So, you know, OpTic versus FaZe, Invasion, Hardpoint, whatever. Like the one that was a banger a few events ago that seems to come to mind. Streaming Moment of the Year, Best Social Team of the Year is actually kind of an interesting one. And then we'll do something for Champs MVP as well. So going to be really cool. We've put a lot of work in. I know Ben has been leading this from the Flank side, getting us over the line. So excited to see what we can do on that one. But let's dive straight into this OpTic stuff, right? Because we saw over the last couple of weeks a conversation between Scump and between obviously Dashy and Shotzzy and Pred, did all of those guys. The Kenny one was somewhat a little bit later on. They were doing it, I'm guessing, here in the Hex quarters, or certainly a different venue to where they did the one previously. And this was, I think, a week after the Dashy one, so still before Major 4, so before Scump went away for his wedding. So it hasn't been done since then. So it's still, you know, I wouldn't say out of date precisely, but this is being recorded just before their run into Major 4. So, you know, Kenny was talking during this, being like, okay, look, we need some momentum back. We need to try and win a few series, make a bit of a losers bracket run at Major 4. That never happened, obviously, right? They ended up, you know, bombing out top 12 at the end of the day. So they didn't really get the momentum that they wanted. But Kenny can still talk about it in a bit more detail than we got before from the other guys on exactly what happened during that 1-in-6 qualifier run, especially the loss to Boston, of course. That was a bad one. And Kenny says the year after the fact, they had, well, he actually just straight up described it as animosity, right? Heated discussions, coming at each other's necks to some degree, and that can be productive to some extent. But it's only productive if the guys can get on the same page and, you know, learn from their mistakes. And of course, then they went into the major and they still, you know, got dead last. Now, Miami, not an easy team to take down. Of course, they lost in 5 to Miami in the end of the day to bow out of the tournament. And even, you know, even the best team in the world is going to lose some percentage of the times. Just because you lost, it doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't playing better. But if you look to their search and destroy from that series, it again wasn't particularly pretty, and they've now lost rather a lot of those in a row. So wanted to share a couple of minutes of this, because Kenny has quite a lot to say initially on some of the problems they run into here. So the very first clip I'm going to share, he's talking about Shotzzy and saying how good of a teammate Shotzzy is, how much he was looking forward to playing with him really going into their teaming this season, trying to get on the same mindset with Shotzzy. And he says, yeah, himself and Shotzzy very much agree on the way to play the game. But he also does say that in terms of chemistry and, let's say, teamwork, Shotzzy and Kenny often find themselves too far apart on the map, which is problematic. Kind of interesting to me that he raises that specifically as one of the problems, just because I don't know if you're necessarily expecting one of your ARs and one of your SMGs to be in the same place. You're probably more expecting both of your SMGs to maybe be, you know, doubling up, right? So, I don't know, I thought it was interesting that he mentions himself and Shotzzy sometimes being too far apart on the map, when I'm not necessarily sure that's his job to be that close to Shotzzy. You know, you got to think his SMG duo might be better positioned to do that, and that's when the questions again come back to the whole Pred side of the argument, right? Now, Scump asks him some interesting questions. Describe your teammates in one word. You know, he goes through Shotzzy, goes through Dashy, goes through even like JP and Karma he talks about. He also talks about AG. And it was interesting that when he talked Shotzzy, when he talked Dashy, talked about, you know, how good they've been in game and some of these other factors. For Pred, he says, yeah, you know, great guy, lots of fun to be around, calls him the class clown, and says that he'd either, if he had to describe Pred in one word, he would either call him a goofball or a clown. Those were his two options, which I guess is fine. But he didn't really, like, he could have mentioned something to do with his gameplay, right? I mean, it would have been possible. So maybe there's nothing in it, but I just thought it was worth considering, right? Because people have certainly said, okay, he said this about Shotzzy, this about Dashy, and this about Pred. Like, is there something in that? Possibly, possibly not. Especially given it's been a theory that if things aren't going so well in the team, then potentially it's those two that are coming to blows. And that's certainly what you might think could be the case given what he says about their practice, right? Because, I'm not gonna lie, when Karma came into this team as the coach, certainly when Kenny came into this team as a player, I thought maybe the days of OpTic not taking practice seriously after a good result might have been over, but apparently not. So let me share a few minutes and then we'll discuss that in a bit more detail.
How to play COD, and me and him are on the same page of how to play. I feel like our pacing is on the same page. It's just like, I feel like in the game, it definitely feels a little off sometimes when me and him are now on the same sides of the map. And I think that's like why we're inconsistent right now. After the Boston loss, there was definitely a little bit of animosity. As expected. I was super heated because, yeah, we were 1-4, whatever, but like a lot of the losses, there were so many like small minimal mistakes that we could have fixed, and just like, I guess, kind of not like super focused mistakes. Like, we're dying to stuff with like the streaks in the air, just random stuff like that. And I'm just like, okay, we lost to the worst team in my opinion, and this is just not like. And I think heated arguments are good for a team just because of the fact that that just shows that people care.
AG. I'm not going to jump in on these.
I call him he's like the class clown. I call him like a goofball. I'll take the goofball word or clown. AG is hilarious to me. Like, oh my god, I don't know. Me and him just like have good laughs all the time, even when we're scrimming, even in matches.
I know he's talking shit.
Yeah,
every scrim, just.
Yeah, I mean, we had talks. Like I said, after our losses and our last loss, I kind of just like got real with the team. Like, I'm gonna be real with y'all. Like, we're not in the spot to win right now. We're not playing like winners. And I was like, I came off kind of egotistical, but I was like, as a winner, we're going into one of the biggest events of the year. And like, we got to start acting like it. Like, we have this mindset that like, we're better on land. And I've always had that mindset, I'm better on land. But it's the fact that like, our practice sometimes isn't even productive online. So like, we're about to come home with no matches, no kind of intensity, no kind of like, I guess, pressure, and we're gonna be scrimming. So like, we need to come with a different mindset after the tournament. Because like, obviously, I'm looking to win Major 4, but I'm also looking at the bigger picture. Like, we're going into the biggest tournament of the year, small ones. But I think it's just a mindset thing for us. So my wisdom for the team is be the mindset. And I kind of already spoke to them. Like, we got to get in a different mindset, especially when we get home.
Yeah.
All this like excuses and stuff like that of like, we can't do this because of this, and like going into the biggest tournament, you don't really have much time to fix those things. We don't really have a pressure in a match or like in that moment for you to do it. You just got to do it in practice. So that's kind of like the main focus for me to get the team in the right mindset.
So Pred actually turned up in the replies to this. So this is the comments, right? Pins by OpTic, love Kenman, good effing dude. So, okay, what do we think about this? I know there was lots of replies saying, oh, you know, here we go, PR response from Pred. And I don't know if he actually made this comment, right? I mean, it could have been a social media guy or whoever's running the account, right? I don't know. But I thought it was interesting to say the least after what was said about Pred during the episode, that Pred then replies, OpTic then pinned the comments, because, you know, you can certainly look into this as, okay, OpTic are trying to present the fact that the team are nicely on the same page to the public, but based on the comments, but whether that's truly the case behind the scenes remains to be seen. But I just wanted to dive a little bit more into this whole practice discussion, right? Because it's been such a consistent trend with OpTic, maybe to some extent even pre-CDL, but when they had the Dynasty, you know, they couldn't really lose to anyone if they really tried. Whereas nowadays, obviously, it's definitely more possible. Some of the other teams are better, and, you know, it's not the Dynasty roster, right? It's a damn good team, but it's not quite what they had several years ago when they were dominating 2016, 2017, stuff like that. So, and in the CDL era, it's definitely been a thing. OpTic occasionally win an event, and then things start to fall off. And sometimes it's not always their fault, right? The Illy thing, right? The thumb injury, that was just unfortunate. But there was a famous series that I now remember being talked about a lot. It was during the Cold War season when OpTic finally beat FaZe. They lose to them all year. They finally beat FaZe in like the Major 5 qualifiers, and it was literally a qualifier match, and they beat them game 5. And OpTic after that series were like, yep, we've done it. You know, we've finally overcome FaZe. We're going to be good from now to the end of the year. It turns out they weren't, and FaZe still won the World Championship in the end, despite losing Major 5, to be fair. So, and OpTic admitted, like, they literally won that online series and got complacent, and it's been a consistent problem, and you'd have thought they might have solved it by now, but apparently not. Even with Kenny, right, who, as he self-describes, really, as, you know, a winning player, like a winner, winning mentality, knows what it takes to get over the line in these critical moments, and, you know, I still feel like Kenny is just such a valuable piece of this team, and I have believed this for some time, and I still believe it, that if they don't do well at Champs and they get rid of Kenny, I think there will be a mistake in the long run. I do believe it will. So, yeah, we'll see. Look, did I think that Kenny would be able to solve this problem? Probably yes. And if Kenny can't solve this problem, then I don't really know, frankly, who actually can. But it still seems to be an issue from like a cultural point of view or whatever. And you can argue it two ways. Either there's like a specific player or two responsible for this, because, you know, the reality is, if they're winning and they're not taking scrims as serious, they're thinking, oh, you know, we're going to be back in business on LAN. Even Kenny mentioned excuses, right? That, like, they were losing these online series and saying, well, you know, Virginia cheese or whatever, right? And then they go to LAN, obviously, even after Kenny says this, and they bow out of the tournament top 12. So clearly there was more to it than just that. And then the question is, okay, where's it coming from? Is it one or two specific players? Because Dashy's been there a long time, but Kenny made it quite clear during the course of that episode that, yeah, Dashy S-tier teammate, right? Compared to where he was, let's say, back when they teamed in MW19, Kenny's much, much happier now with Dashy as a teammate this year, and I think, you know, Dashy seems to be one of the players holding the team into account on certain situations. Sure, is Dashy occasionally late to scrims? As far as we understand, possibly yes, but in general, I think Dashy's been pretty on the ball with that, and Shotzzy, you'd think, is as well. So then it's like, well, is it Preds who's causing the problems in practice, or is it simply like an organizational thing where it doesn't matter what players you put on the team, there's for some reason going to be this feeling that, well, once they win, you know, the foot's going to come off the gas a little bit, and that's obviously going to hurt them in the, you know, medium term. And this brought many people back to kind of discussing the Ghosty situation, right? Because last year, Ghosty, you know, some wanted him to stay. Of course, they brought in Kenny instead, which I think in the long run has been a good decision. Like, at the end of the day, Ghosty's been a great player this year and was a good player last year, made a couple of finals, but, you know, hasn't won on the same level that Kenny has. So I don't really think there's a problem there, but Shotzzy kind of talked about it at the start of when this game first launched, saying, oh, you know, Ghosty was a bit checky, right, in their practice or whatever, was checking the guys out of, like, focusing up or whatever. And definitely interesting to think about this in hindsight, that even without Ghosty, feels like some of these similar problems are reoccurring. So as always, very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below, right? Because, you know, these words said by Kenny before then bowing out of Major 4 top 12, and now they've got to regain for the World Championship, right? So if things were kind of on the ropes going into Major 4 and then they, you know, lose to Miami in 5, I think it's a bit of a tall order, isn't it, to turn things around? And that's probably why, as far as we understand, they've brought in accuracy to help out on the coaching side, because, you know, I think the reality is that's probably going to be rather necessary to turn the situation around. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Just one final interesting thing to mention. Scrappy is looking to become the, well, first player in a long time, really, to make back-to-back Champs Grand Finals in his first 2 years of his career. So there's only 4 players that have ever done this. So he'd be the 5th player to ever do it if Toronto make the finals this event. Only Karma in 2013-14, Rambo in the same 2 years, Simp in 2019-2020, and then Kenny in, would it be 2018-2019? Yeah. So it's been 4 years, basically, since Simp did it and made back-to-back Champs Grand Finals as a rookie. Scrappy has the opportunity to do that this year. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.
Seth's brother took all the time yesterday to make sure we had drinks in the hotel room for everybody, right? I go to grab this bottle of Jose Cuervo. Chad, I can't, I couldn't tell. The wedding planner snatched the bottle out of my hand and said, you can't drink until after photos. Brother, I almost went nuclear, man. Listen, it wasn't my wedding, and so I wasn't going to make a big fuss about it. to ruin Seth's, you know, aura or his vibe. Bro, she walks out the room. It's like the fucking lid came off. We were in Vegas, dude. I pulled that bottle twice. All the boys are drinking fucking whiskey. We're dying. The schedule says we have 2 to 3 to get ready with the boys. 2 to 3 p.m. This all probably happened at like 2:20. She comes back 10 minutes later. I felt like I was in trouble with the principal. I'm trying to hide the bottle. I throw it at somebody else. Hey, I put it under the blankets. She's like, we got to go now. We got to go for the photos. We're like, it says right here on schedule that we have to be down there at 3 o'clock for photos. It's 2:30. She rushes us out. We get down there to sit for 25 minutes, bro. They weren't even ready. No, nobody was ready.